Welcome back. Today, we have the immense honor of marking a historic milestone in Namibia's journey towards freedom and independence. This year, we celebrate the centennial birthday of one of our nation's most revered figures, the late Herman Andimba Toivo Ya Toivo, a freedom fighter, political prisoner, and tireless advocate for justice. His legacy continues to inspire generations of Namibians. Joining us to reflect on his life, his impact on Namibia, and the personal memories that have shaped his own journey is none other than his wife, Vicki Erenstein Ya Toivo, as well as their children, Mutaleni and Ashikoto Ya Toivo, and his nephew, Isak Nahum, of the late. A very good morning and welcome to Good Morning Namibia.
Thank you very much.
Good morning and thank you.
Thank you so much. This is actually a first that we have this big group of people, but it's for a good reason. Let's start with you, Vicki. Can we have a brief history of how you met the late Andimba Toivo Ya Toivo?
Yes. I was an activist in the movement of solidarity with a number of African liberation movements, including Swapo. I invited Lucia Hamtenia, who was working at the UN, to go with me to see Angela Davis, a very famous American former prisoner, political prisoner, who was speaking and in a public speech in Harlem. And she asked me, can I bring Namibians? Can I bring a couple of Namibians? I said, sure. And I went to pick them up. I had a very, very small, subcompact, old car. And he opens the door, and there was Andimba Toivo Ya Toivo and Leake Hangala. Andimba had gotten out of prison not so long before, but we had been campaigning for his freedom even that year. And so I was in a state of shock.
So it was a love at first sight.
I was awestruck.
You are his daughters and his nephew, but I remember when you spoke at his memorial that you referred to him as your father. To most Namibians, we see him as a hero, but to you, you had the opportunity and the honor to actually refer to him as dad. Can you briefly just share some of the memories that come to mind when you remember your dad?
Okay. I grew up in his house. So I moved to my uncle in 1989. He was a very stringent man, very disciplined. He expected us to work very hard. He was also a very loving man. He took us everywhere. Took us every corner of this country. When he used to campaign, we used to go with him. Really fond memories. When I was young, I used to play on his bald head and see how smooth it is. And I've come to join him in having a bald head like him.
You want to go? What's that lady?
Papa, you said dad. We referred to him as Papa. He was a man of routine. So 4 in the morning, exercise until about 6, 7, and then breakfast, and then reading the newspaper, work, and 8 o'clock news always, and also just interacting and spending time with all of us as much as possible, and so and also love to travel. And so if it was weddings, birthdays, funerals, we were always all over the country.
Parliament.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you got to go to Parliament too.
Yeah.
Okay. What are memories that you can remember about your papa?
There are too many to mention right now, but I think overall, he was really supportive of our education and the activities we did after school. He would try his best in his busy schedule to maybe come to a ballet show, a soccer match, a violin concert. He always tried his best to be there, even though he was really busy. So we appreciate him for that.
I equally appreciate, because growing up, I'm from Amaruru, and he always used to go to Amaruru. Yeah, and most of the time when my parents see him, they'll be like, your daddy's around, but I was always so scared. Fast forward in my 20s, I get to meet him around about when Mucho Tower was built. And I was struck, because I was like, this is the man that I grew up like really like saying, this is my hero. And as I stood, he was walking towards me, and he's like, what's your name? And I'm like, Elmarie. He's like, no, what is your name? So I realized that he was asking my traditional name. And then when I said my surname, he's like, do you know who you are? And I'm like, but I just said who I am. And then later on, he's like, no, the surname that you have carries a lot of history. And so you should find yourself. These are memories that I hold dear to me. And fast forward, actually, when I started working at the NBC, I had the opportunity of interviewing him when I worked in the radio current affairs department. And I did not know how to refer to him. So I kept saying tate, tate. And then my senior producer works and was like, no, this is the broadcaster. You can't say tate on air. So he really has been one of the people that we as Namibians refer to not only as a hero, but also as a father. Now, given the fact that his heroism has been documented a lot, what are some of the significant contributions that he made to the Namibian liberation that you can share with us?
Well, to begin with, he was clearly one of the founders of Swapo. He organized the Namibian workers in Cape Town into an organization which became Swapo. And they put forth the important ideas that were part of our struggle. An end to a contract labor system, the end to South Africa's domination. But even in those early days, they added that the people of Namibia should control the wealth for their own benefit, not others taking our wealth from our country. And also at a very early stage, in the first petition that he was involved with sending to the UN, they were demanding certain equal rights for women, which was really quite revolutionary at the time. That was one. Secondly, he was the organizing secretary of Swapo for northern Namibia. So he organized lots and lots and lots and lots of people throughout the north into Swapo. He was also responsible for sending people out of the country to join the struggle, to get an education. So many people went through his hands, including our current president. He assisted the combatants who came into the country to conduct the armed struggle. Another contribution, which I think was incredibly big, was the speech he made at his trial. The speech voiced the authentic aspirations of the Namibian people, and it became a rallying cry. It inspired many people to join the struggle. I can also say he dedicated his whole life to this struggle. That's an important contribution without expecting a position, without really looking at anything for himself. He did this because he believed in it, and he believed in the Namibian people. So to me, it was an enormous contribution.
Which contributions would you like to share with us?
Yeah, I would like basically his selflessness to his people. The big contribution that is also very understated was the fact that we could go with him anywhere, and he never felt that he was more important than anybody. He would greet you, and he would always ask you, who are you, where are you from? And he would probably know your family better than you would know your family. So for me, it's just his selflessness to this country. Also, he just wanted equality. Equality for everybody, and everybody to have a better life in a country that is full of resources.
Nashikoto?
Oh, sorry. As someone who just graduated in Cuba, I think as his internationalism, so not with every and any country, irrespective of what his role was here, he was very social, and he had, and prior to any, role, he portrayed that, when he went and spoke at the UN, and even in South Africa when he was imprisoned, and just as a Namibian, trying to fight for Namibia's liberation. So internationalism would be my...
Okay. Mutaleni, your dad, or Papa, was the voice for the most marginalized, as your mom alluded to. As a woman that is sitting here today, what would you say was one of the things that he strived for in terms of women empowerment?
Perhaps what I can say, I'm not really sure what's specific for women empowerment, but for both genders, it was just that everyone have education. He is somebody, or was somebody, that really strived for education. And I think, I'm blanking out. Yeah, he just really focused on education and wanted that to continue. And as his family, we are trying to pursue that as part of his legacy. And we're all privileged to have had an education. So generally, I mean, from the most marginalized to whoever, regardless of who you are, as has been said, he strived for education.
She just basically touched a little bit about his dreams, though he's not here, and his legacy still continues. What would be some of the dreams that he shared with you that you would love to see come to reality?
Andimba wanted everyone to be able to benefit from the wealth of this country. There's no question about that. He used to say, I don't like liars, I don't like thieves. He believed very much, he was strongly opposed to corruption. He believed in transparency. He wanted to live in a society where everybody had an opportunity to go as far as they could. He, as they talked about education, he wanted the children who did not have the advantages and access to resources to be able to benefit just like anyone else. And he really believed this was possible. He respected everyone. He abhorred tribalism. He believed that it was important to respect culture, but he really, really consciously had a concept of Namibia as a nation of people who were unified. And that's what he would like to see.
Mutaleni briefly touched on the continuation of his legacy. We know that in about a few hours you will be launching the Andimba Toivo Ya Toivo Foundation. Can you just briefly speak to us about what some of this focus would be on?
Well, actually, the foundation will be launched after the first of the year, not in
now,
a few
yes.
hours.
In February 2025,
yeah.
Yes.
It has broad purposes, but the basic idea is to support activities that perpetuate the legacy and the values of Andimba, which include integrity, dedication to service to the people, determination.
Humility.
What?
Humility.
Humility, very important.
Courage.
But basically, we want to promote activities that will enable people to participate freely in public discourse, to see the importance of debate, also to support, as we said, education, but education where you can take the most marginalized young people, and they can turn out to be the stars in this country. It's a lot of work. I think that once the foundation has broad purposes, but at the end of the day, it will have, I hope, a very representative and forward-looking group of trustees who will take it forward. They will decide what the programs will be. We have some ideas, but it would be really a little bit premature to talk about them now. Yeah.
Isaac, if you can perhaps maybe share with us some of the ways that the family will be celebrating his 100th year.
Okay. We're going to start today at Heroes Acre to commemorate his what would have been his 100th birthday. We all know it's an election year, and as a family we decided we don't want to impact that in any way. So the activities are going to start towards the beginning of 2025. The launch of the foundation, like my aunt said, we're going to have activities. He was a big person that loved sports and exercise. We're going to have runs during the year. We're going to have symposiums. We're going to have public lectures. Those are some of the activities that come to mind now. But these are the activities that we'll carry out throughout the year.
Okay. Nashikoto and Mutalini, how would you want Namibians? We briefly spoke about how the family is going to be celebrating, but how do you believe best can Namibians remember his legacy?
I think the way Namibians can best remember his legacy is to just, take into account the man that he was. And especially if, one has had personal interaction, or be it their parents, because, he's of an older generation, and just the humble and kind, genuine person that he was. There aren't, one would like to emulate that in everything they do, but, the true person that he was.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can just add on to that. So lately, over the past 7 days, we've been posting as a family the values he stood for. And if one were to just Google him, you can read about him and how he was, or perhaps listen to interviews that he had. And I think just by watching somebody, you kind of get a sense of who they are. And as I think my mom and my brother have mentioned, and my sister, how the type of person he was, we would just want everybody to basically share that same values, if they do, or I guess, like my sister said, emulate those same things towards other people.
Yes.
Andimba's had a number of very important expressions, but the one that we all remember, put on T-shirts and so forth, is where there's a will, there's a way. He absolutely believed that if you set goals, you can achieve them as long as you just keep at it. That's how Namibia achieved independence. I think he believes that. I think there are other goals that we as a nation can achieve collectively if we have a common will.
Much like your husband, you also continue, or you have been advocating for various voices. What drives you, and also how does it align with your late husband's vision?
My husband and I share the same values. Right? I was a political activist before I came here. What drives me is a desire for the people in this country, all of us, to live better, all right? Pure and simple. That's what drives me, if one were to encapsulate it. And that requires a collective effort. It requires not accepting greed, not accepting a lot of things that we see that may keep us from that objective, but we believe that there are many, many, many people in this country who share that view. They may interpret it differently, but it's as simple as that. What drives me is I don't want to see children in an upper middle income country suffering from malnutrition, which we have at present. I don't want to see, I lose sleep over the rate of unemployment of young people. But it goes on and on and on. What drives me is I want to contribute to improving lives in this country and the life of the country.
As a child who definitely loves the late and your husband, we can actually continue this whole conversation and just have it. But unfortunately, we have run out of time. But before we go, just one word that describes the late. I'll start with you, Matalini, and then we go this way. Just one word.
Loving?
Courageous.
Determination.
You took that one. I'll say tenacious.
Tenacious. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much for having
Thank you
us.
for having us.
That was the family of the late Andimba Ya Toivo, who is turning 100 years today. They will be